Sometimes the smallest shifts, a different oil, a quicker step, or a restorative fruit can make real and positive impact on our health. And we're going to talk about it. This is the kind of science you can use that actually fits into your day. We experience 1,000 waking minutes on average every day. How are you spending yours? I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and you're listening to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I can't wait to connect with you here with practical ways to eat well, move daily, and be healthy, to optimize every waking minute you live for a happier, healthier life. Thank you for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. Let's get started.
I'm saying yes to better days, yes. I'm on my way, yes. It's gonna be okay, yeah.
Good day and welcome back to 1,000 Waking Minutes. I'm Dr. Wendy Bazilian, and as always, I'm so glad you're here with me today. If you've listened before, you know I love science, especially good science. And even when it challenges what we thought we knew or conflicts with something that has been reported otherwise elsewhere in the peer-reviewed research, science does evolve. Science helps make sense of the world, and it helps us test some hypotheses, real scientific hypotheses, as well as our own personal ideas, and get some answers sometimes. It can even help us maybe establish some guidance, especially in the complex area of nutrition and fitness and health and wellness. And you know, science isn't just about chasing the trends or tossing out everything that we thought we knew because some new shiny headline breaks, even though they are very attention-grabbing at times. But it's really about learning, refining, paying attention to the patterns and to the bigger picture and the little details. So it's big picture and little details, so we can live better and not just longer when it comes to our health. So today's episode is one of our science updates, where I bring you 3 studies that caught my eyes, probably yours, and the things that sort of I wake up and wonder about in the night. So a couple of them are actually ones that you all wrote me about, which I'm super excited about. And today we're going to talk about them. I'm going to break them down and what they really mean for our everyday choices. So you're not here for the clickbait, neither am I. You're here for some clarity, hopefully, for some evidence that's actually science we can use, or science to strategy, evidence we can experience. You know, I love alliteration there. So we'll talk about some small swaps that may just stretch your lifespan today and improve the way that you feel when you're in your body. We'll talk about the kind of movement that protects your heart without ever stepping foot in the gym. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't, or you might not be doing that also, but it's cool new research that's out there. And we'll also talk about maybe a surprising food that may help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and may help your overall well-being. Just practical shifts today and some stories that back them up with the science. And as always, we'll close with a quick recap so that you can take away with some actionable steps, something concrete to try or share this week, something that can fit into your waking minutes. So let's talk about the science you can use. First, we're going to begin with eating well, the food on your plate, and more specifically, what you're cooking your food in or drizzling on your food or using. A new study from Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, the renowned team and renowned university and research institution that's done decades of leading research in nutritional longevity, they looked at how different fats affect our long-term health and risk of disease from chronic diseases like cancer and heart disease. So here's the short version. The type of fat you eat matters, and in particular, sort of the balance, not that one's bad, but the balance overall in your healthy pattern of eating. So it's not just how much, it's the type and the pattern. So in this study, research followed over 220,000 adults over 3 large cohort studies. You may have heard these referenced before. The Nurses' Health Study, the Nurses' Health Study 2 with Roman numeral 2 after it, and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. This has been a study that's been ongoing since 1990-91. And what they found is that when looking at this cohort, these 3 cohorts, that those who consumed more plant-based oils like olive oil, avocado oil, even walnut oils or chia oils, but plant-based oils, had significantly lower risk of dying from all causes, including heart disease and cancer. And they reported a 16% lower total mortality risk. That's significant. Meanwhile, those who consumed more butter, and I'm not coming down on butter today, but they had a higher risk of total and cancer-related mortality. In fact, a 15% higher risk, those who consumed more butter. In the highest intake group, they had a 15% higher risk. In other words, the risk of dying from any cause compared to those who ate the least amount of butter. Now, again, this doesn't mean that butter is bad. I like butter. And it's not bad like the way that we once thought, back in big bad butter days, maybe the 1980s. We've come a long way from that fat phobic era and that messaging. But it does mean swapping in more plant-based oils. And that swapping them in more and more often can offer a science-backed strategy, let's say. And this isn't the first study to report this. This has been happening for better over a decade, I would say. I think 2010 maybe, there was a significant study, or 2010, between 2010 and 2015, a significant study that really planted this on the map, plant oils, planted this on the map as the importance of swapping in polyunsaturated fats for saturated fats. This is an extension into the plant oils, swapping some in for butter. So you don't have to ban butter from your home, but maybe we can be a little bit more strategic. Maybe saute your veggies in olive oil more days than not. Try some other interesting plant oils, high quality ones, cold pressed oils, like in your vinaigrettes, maybe a walnut oil, or use chia oil, which is cold pressed, as I've talked about before. You can even put these in smoothies, or as a baking swap, or in blends with our olive oil and our avocado oil. And so putting this into everyday real life, this is just as little as putting in a teaspoon of oil in 1 teaspoon increments, 5-gram increments that made significant differences. 1 teaspoon of cold pressed organic canola oil, 15% lower risk of death. 1 teaspoon of olive oil per day, 8% lower risk. 1 teaspoon of, again, high quality soybean oil, 6% lower risk. And we're not talking about seed oils today. I am talking about high quality oils and the importance of plant-based oils, according to this research. And when it came to evaluating cancer and heart health, every 2 teaspoons or 10 grams of more plant oil per day was linked to 11% lower risk of dying from cancer and a 6% lower risk of dying from heart disease. So this really starts to underscore the importance of some simple swaps, like replacing 2 teaspoons of butter a day with 2 teaspoons of plant-based oil. That's a tongue twister if I ever had one. But replacing 2 teaspoons with 2 teaspoons of the plant-based oil led to a reported 17% lower risk of death and 17% lower risk of dying from cancer. So I think it's important for us to remember plant oils also come with other things that plants have, especially when they're cold pressed and they're not ultra refined with solvents and enzymes. They still have remaining plant nutrients as well. So plant oils do come with things like polyphenols, antioxidants, even omega-3s, as in the case with chia oil or high quality flax oil or walnut oil. So it's not just a fat gram or a fat calorie, and it's not just a trade for that. It's part of the broader shift toward that plant-based equals more nutrients and more nutrient-rich choices. So this ultimately means small daily swaps, like sauteing, that they can make a meaningful difference over time. And it's not about eliminating butter, but shifting the balance or evaluating what you're already doing well, maybe. Maybe this just is a study that underscores that you're doing great things to help manage your disease risk, to maximize and optimize your healthy, vital living with your waking minutes and your choices. So you've got those 1,000 waking minutes in your day. So why not let some of those be thoughtful around the types of fats you choose to use? Your day can be filled with lots of little decisions toward this end. And again, I love my butter. There's certain things that there's non-negotiable where butter will win, but you might think about a trade on some instances. All right, so moving from what's in your pan or maybe what's in your vinaigrette to how you move your body. So we're going to move daily. Remember, eat well, move daily, be healthy. I'm going to have a little bit of each of those today. So this is about how you move your body throughout the day. And if the words like a formal workout routine or the days you must go to the gym, if those things make you roll your eyes back or just glaze over, you're probably half tuned out already. I've got a good study to share with you today. New studies published in Circulation, that's the journal of the American Heart Association, peer-reviewed journal, real high-quality journal. It looked at IPA, not IPA the beer, but IPA, incidental physical activity. And by incidental, I mean the stuff you're probably already doing or could easily do without joining a gym or buying any gear or going to a platform class like I did last week as part of a group from my daughter's school. We're talking actually about IPA, so that incidental physical activity, like brisk walking while you're running errands, like carrying your groceries, like cleaning, vacuuming or cleaning with a little extra oomph, like putting a little more into it. The type that breaks a sweat even. When you're hustling around the house for guests to come, think about that because it really counts and it pays off. And maybe that can put actually a new spin on tidying up and cleaning in this manner. So in this study, researchers tracked over 6,000 adults ages 40 to 69, and they were wearing on their wrists accelerometers. So that sort of measures the calorie and energy expenditure from movement. They're kind of like the Fitbits. Some of you may even have them. And they can get at more real world, like minute to minute data. And what they found was really compelling. Those who simply did their tasks, their daily tasks, at a brisker pace, like with more intention and purpose, like vacuuming like you mean it, or powering through the grocery store with your list on a mission, they saw up to a 67% reduction in cardiac and cardiovascular diseases. And they saw a 69% lower chance of dying from any causes. That's called overall mortality in science talk. A 69% lower chance. So in other words, people who moved more intensely during their everyday tasks were significantly less likely to die from things like heart disease, cancer, or other major health issues compared to those who were least active or least doing this. So this is pretty remarkable. This is research that is compelling and, sort of maybe makes sense, but it's nice to have numbers and significance to show that what you do and with what intensity counts, and it's cumulative. So I want to be more clear about this. This wasn't the hours in the gym. These were short, moderate intensity movements woven into daily life. The benefits started around 23 minutes in a day of brisk activity. And it wasn't 23 minutes in tandem. It wasn't 23 minutes consecutively. It was 23 minutes total of more intensely moving and doing more IPA, more of that movement during your everyday activities. So I want to sort of hit pause on the episode for a second or on that thought to also say, of course, that it doesn't mean that we don't need structured exercise or that the morning walk or your strength classes, that those aren't worthwhile. In fact, they are worthwhile for a multitude of reasons, which I speak to on a regular basis. And they have great benefits in their own right. But it does mean that the formal workout isn't essential all the time, or if it's not accessible to you, that there's no point or you're not getting any value about what you do and how you move. Because if time, cost, childcare, injuries, or if you're just feeling burned out, there's another way in to credit for what you're doing that has a real health impact. So this study really reinforces what I always say, move daily. It doesn't have to mean work out. It can be something that's just moving more, moving daily. And it might unload some of the burden that you place on your mind. And it might be done by unloading something else, like your grocery bags from your car, in one more trip than trying to get it all on your arms. I've been known to do that at one trip. It might justify that instead of carrying it all at once. Or doing yard work and walking briskly while you're doing it and working hard and knowing that it counts. It might be justification for actually parking further instead of scrambling and maybe becoming frustrated that you can't find a spot up close because you're tag teaming with something else that has real impact on your health. And it could even be that sort of cranking up the music while you're getting dinner ready. You can do it on your own. You can invite someone in, like a child. You can even dance around with your pet if you dare, or if you care, and if you want to, which I think is fun. So the key here is really intention. It's giving a little more energy, a little more purpose to your movement that you're already doing. And if you're doing this while you're folding your laundry, well, fold it, maybe march in place, or toss in a few squats when you're doing that. When you head out to run errands today, purposefully park a little further, or could you even walk? Are there stairs that you might be able to take instead of the elevator? Those are the kinds of things you've heard before, but they're not gimmicks. They're really important and they're grounded in evidence. And they're about reclaiming the idea that movement belongs anywhere and movement belongs to everyone, not just when you're dressed in the proper, yoga wear or athleisure, I think they call it, or on a Peloton or at the specialty exercise class. So let's all, sort of make a commitment together that to make our daily minutes, the errands, the chores, our dog walks, or just, carrying around boxes and putting things away, make those movements with purpose. Okay, so let's now shift into a different kind of energy. Something that lives right on the edge of our 1000 waking minutes. And this is sort of in the be healthy space. This is something that actually powers our waking minutes. And if you think about zooming out for a moment and knowing that this podcast is about our waking minutes, the hours that we live with intention, we're awake, we know that about 440 of those, somewhere between 420 and 480, daily minutes are meant to be spent asleep for good health, to support our health in a foundational way, for long-term health, for emotional balance, for mental clarity, immune resilience, even for creativity. Now, why did I just say 420 to 480 minutes? Well, of course, because that's between that sort of magical 7 to 8 hours that many research papers have suggested for most of us can really help us get restorative sleep that's health promoting and health supporting. So what we do when we're awake totally matters. And that's what this podcast is about. How we use our waking minutes, how we choose to use them, how we slice and dice them, and how they're life's currency that are ours to operate around and to value toward a well-lived life. But also remembering that it's sleep that can help power those waking minutes. How we rest is just as vital. And that brings me into our third study for today, or actually rather a small collection of studies. And it's all about kiwis, the fruit, the fuzzy green fruit. So you might wonder, why bring up a kiwi now? And the original study that I'm going to reference was actually published quite a while ago. So it's not late breaking, last minute, right now news. It was published in 2001 in the Asia Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So it's not exactly hot off the press. But what's happening right now is a surge of renewed interest, which is why I want to bring it up. It's kind of a research revival of sorts. A few people have asked me about kiwi for sleep after seeing a headline or social post recently. And one person in particular, thank you, Sarah, is one of those, a personal friend. And another friend and fellow dietitian also wrote a piece for Very Well Health recently, just in the last month, about kiwi and health and referenced around some of this information. So I saw it referenced again then in another publication talking about elite athletes using kiwi as part of their recovery routine. And this was from a study a few years ago that actually I had shared in a presentation about sports nutrition and recovery around the same time it first came out. This kind of spurred an organic curiosity, and it usually tells me like something's bubbling up. Is there a hot new study? Why are we looking at this? And I decided to take a closer look. So I dug in a bit and sort of followed my nose, not like a bloodhound per se, but sort of like a scientist detective. And I'm just realizing that my daughter, who has said she was going to be an animal doctor, since she could say the word dog and doctor, veterinarian, of course, she also puts a hyphen sometimes on her career future. She calls herself a veterinarian detective. So I decided, maybe that's where it comes from, I'm a science detective at times. And here's what I found when I dug around a little and why I think it's timely and relevant right now to talk about kiwi fruit and sleep. So in the original clinical trial in 2011, when it was published, researchers had adults with self-reported sleep problems eat 2 green kiwis 1 hour before bed for 4 weeks. So they took no other pills, no melatonin, just the fruit before bed. And the results were quite impressive. One small study, but the participants fell asleep 35% faster. They slept 13% longer, and they had fewer nighttime awakenings, along with improved sleep reports. So their sleep efficiency, it's called, improved. And this is significant. And by the way, it's also safe and simple and affordable. But we, the big we, the headlines, didn't hear a lot about it back then. You know, the idea of sleep and health was sort of burgeoning and bubbling, but it was important in the growing sleep nutrition research. I've mentioned it many times. I still do when I talk about sleep and foods that might help, or about different foods with nutrients and phytochemicals that have impact on various aspects on our health, like gut health and sleep and energy and skin health, naming a few that kiwi may be involved in through their nutrients. Not all research has been on kiwi and those health outcomes, but the nutrients in them. But this was not hot off the presses at the moment, as I mentioned. But the idea of sleeping, getting to sleep faster, sleeping longer, and sleeping better, yes, and please, and thank you to all of those. There was another study in 2023, so I mentioned an athlete study, so a couple years ago, not long ago, a newer study looking at elite athletes with a similar routine. They were elite runners, national level sailors, like sailing boats, who ate 2 kiwis before bed for 4 weeks. And even in this highly trained group, the results echoed the 2011 study. Total sleep time increased by an hour. That's significant. Sleep efficiency improved over 93%. Nighttime awakenings dropped. And the athletes even reported better mood and alertness and less fatigue. So no supplements again, just kiwi. They're rich, by the way, in serotonin, which is a melatonin precursor. They have vitamin C at very high levels. Your full daily recommendation, just 1 kiwi. They have folate, they have antioxidants, they have potassium, all of which we know are nutrients that can help play a role in sleep regulation and recovery. And there's another study around that same time that the athlete study came out, published, I think, the end of 2023, that evaluated the effects of kiwi and vitamin C supplements. So it's kiwi versus vitamin C supplements. I mentioned that kiwis are very high in vitamin C, and it was a particular type of kiwi that's even higher in vitamin C in individuals who had low vitamin C levels. And they measured the impact on well-being. And I think maybe it was mood. I'm a little rusty on this study, but it came to mind as I was looking at it. And I didn't dig into that one because I really wanted to focus on sleep. But I do recall one on well-being overall, which re-upped it recently for its rediscovery in the media headlines. So anyway, why now? This is a long way to say, why is there renewed interest in this? Aside from, who doesn't want to find another reason to love kiwis, which I do, recognizing that some people are allergic, which I'm sad about, but I understand that. But I think that now it's because sleep is not just a side issue anymore. Well-being is at the forefront of our minds, and these are super key. They're foundational to our health. Our be healthy pillar, it's right there. Eat well, move daily, be healthy. And it's an intersection of two of those, eating well through kiwi and better sleep. I mean, seriously, sign me up for that one because it's a great bridge between the two. And sleep is one of our top public health concerns that we say subjectively, like poor sleep, and we know in the science that it can negatively impact our health. It can even impact our workplace performance. And so increasingly, employers and institutions and companies, and even if you're self-employed, you recognize that your performance can be impacted by poor sleep. We're tired, we're overstimulated, and we're looking for something that's not a pill, but still effective. So I think that some of that is why we're hearing again about this cool research. And I actually hope that some researchers will repeat and replicate and show us more about the impact of kiwi on sleep, on energy, on well-being. And by the way, it's something that you could try tonight without side effects or complicated routine. It's a humble, naturally nutrient-rich food that I hope that you get into your fruit basket anyway. But this is one of the reasons why I'm bringing these like little bit older studies back into the spotlight, and why probably some of my peers and some of the respected journalists I've seen are looking at these right now, even though they're not brand new, because they're newly relevant and they're worth considering now. So I talked a little bit about the nutrient Y, the serotonin, the vitamin C, the folate, different key nutrients, fiber. There's been some research on the gut health and the gut microbiome and kiwi, and certainly the nutrients in kiwi and gut health. And there's really no downside to you experimenting with this. So kiwis are a fruit, they're fiber, they're flavor. And if the side effect is better sleep, that's a pretty big win in my book. So beyond the numbers, this is a moment for us to pause and think bigger. Because if we have roughly 1,000 waking minutes each day to be engaged and active and creative and thoughtful, then getting restorative sleep isn't just a nighttime goal, it's a daytime strategy. So that's how I want, and why I'll come back to sleep very often in a podcast called 1000 Waking Minutes. So if you're looking for a nudge toward more restorative sleep and better waking minutes, in other words, to support your nights and also your days, consider this your invitation to 2 kiwis, approximately an hour before bed, maybe as the dessert instead of a more sugary dessert, which may negatively impact your sleep. Maybe put it with a herbal tea or a ritual, maybe not with your phone in hand. Maybe you take out something else like a real live magazine or engage in a conversation with a loved one. And then just see. Notice how your body feels on this. Notice your energy, your focus, your mood. Maybe you do need to try it out for a number of weeks. Be a scientist. Be a scientist detective and make discoveries about your own body. Because sleep, I think, is like a silent superpower. We don't always get what we need. I'm a working mom. I'm short on sleep sometimes. I do a lot of hours like you probably do as well. I wake sometimes anxiously. I'm a big thinker, but I'm always pursuing because I know that sleep is a superpower and it really helps us do better and accomplish more, and it has a major impact on our health. It makes our waking minutes better, makes them clearer and sharper, kinder, more patient, and it makes us more resilient in our physical self and our long-term health. So it can put us, back on the map for the day to be more alert and have more presence in your day. And being rested isn't a luxury. We shouldn't think of it that way. It's foundational to your health. And this is not bad for a fruit and an old study that's been resurfacing. And it's not too hard to toss them into your grocery cart. And maybe this is the first time, at least along this podcast journey that I'm on, that I can say, take two, call me in the morning. And hopefully it'll be a well slept and energized morning at that. So there you have it. 3 pieces of science that stood out, not just because they were well designed or well reported, but because they matter, because they translate. And this is not to generalize what the study findings were to us in a direct way, because that's not responsible science, but to take what the science showed and see if there's translational moments or things that we can try in our own life and see for ourselves. Because sometimes science can meet us right in the kitchen, or it can meet us while we're doing our chores, and it can meet us in our final moments before bed. So as a recap, we talked about the power of simple and the importance of simple fats in our diet, the importance of them, and choosing to swap more olive oil, more avocado oil, more chia oil, high quality oils over butter where it makes a difference in your life. Sometimes, not all the time. Again, not because butter's a villain, but because more plant-based fats have some little extra goodness, some more nutrients, and can support long-term health. Then we moved into how working into moving on purpose, doing errands, cleaning the house, walking through a store on a mission, that can be good. And maybe that's just a reframe in your mind that what you're doing matters toward your health. And it can significantly reduce your risk of heart disease and even lower overall mortality, according to the research. So worth giving a try and to weave it into your life. And finally, we zoomed back out on this small fruit and looked at a few studies and why the renewal and the resurgence, and looked at the studies, a few that showed 2 kiwi an hour before bed helped people in these studies fall asleep faster, sleep longer, wake up less often. And when you think about it, better sleep means better days. And that's what 1000 waking minutes is really about. So 3 quick things you can do this week. Swap your cooking fat. Try some avocado oil, some olive oil, some chia oil, walnut oil instead of butter a couple times. Move with more intention. So pick up the pace while you're doing what you're already doing and know that it adds up. And put kiwis on your grocery list. Eat 2 an hour before bed. See if it helps your sleep. Probably not a one-time thing. Who knows? Maybe there's both combination of reality and placebo effect at one time, but this would be a consistent move that you can try. So put them on your grocery list. And remember, it's not about doing everything or doing it all perfectly. It's about the small, meaningful actions that add up. And you don't need to completely overhaul your life. Hopefully you're getting that message loud and clear. Just one thoughtful choice and knowing that you have 1000 waking minutes, your life's currency, deposited each day upon waking. So if this episode gave you something to think about, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love you to share it with a friend. Send me a note. And if you have seen a study or a headline that's either making the rounds or is really intriguing to you, or a health headline that you might be confused about, scratching your head, send it to me. And I just might feature it in a future episode, or we can interact and converse. This is really, for me, about building community around our waking minutes toward a well-lived life, to build community so that we can be in this together, this journey. You can always find me at wendybazilian.com or email me directly at 1kwm@wendybazilian.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd love you to leave a review, a kind review, if you're enjoying it, or just tell someone you know to listen to an episode. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate how this community is growing into really thoughtful and curious and time-conscious health seekers. So thank you, as always, for sharing some of your waking minutes with me today. And until next time, be well. Thank you for tuning in to 1000 Waking Minutes. A huge thank you to our amazing collaborators, including our production and marketing teams, and Gabriela Escalante in particular. To the ultra-talented Beza for my theme music, my lifelong friend and artist, Pearl Price Photography and Design, to Daniel Ballantyne, Jen Nguyen, Joanna Powell, and of course my family, and everyone working tirelessly behind the scenes. And to you, our valued listeners, I so appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a comment, writing a review, and giving 1000 Waking Minutes, that's us, a 5-star rating. And please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Please follow and stay connected at wendybazilian.com. And don't forget to share with your friends. Your support helps us grow and bring you more great content. Until next time, find some simple opportunities to optimize those 1000 waking minutes each day.
I'm saying yes